Hello and welcome to this episode of the Once and Future Parents. I am Matthew, formerly your future parent, now again a parent. No, do it again. Hello, welcome to the Once and Future Parents. I am Matthew, formerly the former parent, now a parent, along with my two co-hosts, Mandy and Pete. How are we doing today?
Great.
Thrilled to be here.
Glad to have you both. Glad to have you both. This is going to be it's now been about 3 weeks since we brought our baby home. We did not do much recording during that time because it turns out that learning to have a baby in the house is a little bit of work. But we're getting back to a recording schedule. And yeah, this episode is going to be kind of about checking in about this first couple weeks, talking about what it was like for you guys, and kind of learning some of the things. And we're going to kind of start by just saying some of the things we've learned ourselves about parenting this week. We're at different stages of parenting, but we're all going to be parents, and we're all being parented at various points in our lives as well. We learned this week that, really 2 weeks ago, when we first got home, that a burping cloth equals any piece of cloth that is in hand's reach.
Oh, yes.
The burping process seems to you can get your baby well situated on you. You've got the burping cloth right there. You're burping properly. Nothing happens. And then 20 minutes later, you're doing something else, and all that milk you've worked so hard to comes right back up.
So he's a spitter upper, is he?
He definitely is.
Yep.
Is. We're going to get more into that, but yeah, that's been the inside of the week. Is that the number of shirts that I've gone through the laundry on.
Oh, yeah.
He's decided that's when it's time.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
And that'll be nice because you will end up with a bunch of, I know you are a fan of the logoed t-shirt, and my my wife kept for years all the t-shirts that were trashed, and and has been making t-shirt logo quilts
Mm-hmm.
out of them. So it's nice to kind of look back at all of the shirts that were destroyed by the newborn and realize, oh, we can just cut stuff out and make something out of it and have a sweet memory of, a time that is vapor at this point in our kind of collective memory.
That's
like
so
that.
sweet. I just make my son feel guilty. Like, you used to puke on me all day. All day you puked on me, and I still loved you and kept you alive.
Yeah, you're just damn lucky. We were at
Right?
that point where I realized that there was the burping early on, and then there are years when there's no burping, right? Like it just feels like they're gastrointestinally fine. Then they become teenagers and they start burping again. And
Right.
it's arguably worse because their breath is bad. They don't shower enough. When they're in the shower, they don't do the job right. And you just always feel like you're on the precipice of just disgusting something coming out of their face.
I feel like though that's still better than the spitting up, which really
Okay. All right. I mean, that's
just
fair.
kind of like being nice about. It's just vomit. Like it is just them.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it is gnarly.
Yeah.
Well, so that's been my observation of the week. Birthing cloth is whatever cloth you've got nearby. Mandy and Pete, what's something you've seen about parenting or experienced new in parenting this week?
Oh, boy. Well, I know we're going to get more in depth, but I went driving with Casey, who is 15 and a couple of months.
Outstanding.
Yeah, it's the real deal. So it's emotional in a way that I didn't want to burden him with, but it's just also surreal to look to my left and there's my son driving my car. We were in a parking lot, but
Yeah.
oh, that was a big parenting moment.
How have you managed the duty of drive training between you and Jer?
First of all, you said duty. Second of all,
Thank you.
God.
I bring the high-minded humor.
That's right.
It's what I do.
Mhm.
It's really Jer's domain. Jer
Okay.
is a much more detail-oriented person. So he likes to break things down and really dive in. And I'm like, it's fine. Just go. And if the mirror needs to be adjusted, you'll adjust it. I'm
Yeah.
not as detail-oriented. So Jer brought him the first 2 times. And then Jer is recovering from a hernia surgery and can't go. And Casey said, would you take me driving? And I said, of course I will. And he was like, you're a lot quieter than Dad. And I was like, well, you're doing great. I mean, you already adjusted the mirrors and you're looking
Yeah.
both ways. What do I need to say? So
Outstanding.
it'll be Jer.
It'll be
Yeah.
Jer.
Well, I say well done to you both, to all three of you, because I think my father concluded that the price of putting me in a driver's ed class was significantly less than the cost of the therapy that would be needed if he tried to teach me to drive a car.
Mm.
So we, decisions were made, and if you can do it yourselves, and we, as Mandy alluded to, we will be going more into that next week when we're going to be talking about the whole idea of letting go and how this is a constant process of, as parents, we start out wanting to be with our child, every single moment, every single day. And we slowly have to let go of the idea that we're always going to be the ones to keep them safe. And that starts with, me and Mary. That starts with me and Mary being at the point of, can we let grandma babysit for a couple hours while we go out shopping or go out to dinner, all the way through to, can they be the one to drive the car, to taking them to college, to
College.
marrying, seeing them get married and being all that stuff that I think is still in all of our futures. Well, maybe, who knows who gets married, but you know what I mean. None of us have done that yet, was my point.
I will hum Sunrise Sunset through the entire discussion next week. You're welcome.
There we go. We're already getting to that point. My baby can almost keep its head up already, and that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. But of course, it means that I'll never have those moments back again.
You've already passed a moment.
The sun has set. But yeah, let's kind of talk about the first couple weeks that we've had here, and kind of hearing from you guys what those first couple weeks were, because really the main part of our experience so far, although it's starting to shift, but if I could describe the first couple weeks of my baby's life with me at home, is that I am a person who long ago learned that I eat my feelings. When I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do a lot of other things when I'm upset or something, but I self-soothe with food. And apparently I have genetically passed that on, because no matter what's going on with the baby, if I stick a bottle in its mouth, it's going to be happy for a little while. Which is great at first, but now we're starting to get to a point of like, well, what are other reasons the baby can be upset? And so I'm first going to just talk about this. What was feeding like for you guys for the first couple weeks, especially figuring out like, when do you feed and when do you maybe not feed a baby?
We, long time ago, full disclosure, but the woman who was in charge, she was the nurse manager of the nursing unit in the hospital where we gave birth. I went to grad school with her, and so we were friends, and we became pretty close, and she set us up. Like, she set us up for the birth of our first. Just made sure that we had everything we needed, and it was really lovely. And she said, just remember that there are very few reasons that the child is going to cry, right? One, it's gastrointestinally upset, so it's probably got a burp coming, and it's upset. Two, it just pooped itself and it's uncomfortable. So upset, uncomfortable, or hungry. It just needs to feed. It knows nothing else but those three things. And so if you can stay on top of those three things, you're going to be fine. And I found that checked out for a long time. It was just, I'm hungry, I got a burp coming and it's uncomfortable, and I just pooped myself. And I don't know what to do about that. So I'm going to cry, because crying is the only thing I have.
You just described my Saturday night. There it is.
There it is.
I'm hungry. I just pooped myself. I'm going to cry.
Gonna cry. So I found, like, once I got into that rhythm and stopped assuming, because my initial assumption was always, oh, it must be hungry. And I would forget to check the diaper, or I would forget to try a burp. And when it wasn't always hungry, it just wasn't always hungry. So, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure that out, but it does take a little routine. It takes practice.
Well, I think also that's where some of the eating your feelings thing that I joked about came in, which is obviously I'm referring to serious eating issues. I do wrestle with this myself, but obviously a baby doesn't have that, thank God. But one thing we found at first was that no matter what it was, but if we put the bottle in his mouth, it would be very soothing. And that would stop the crying long enough for dealing with some of the problem. Of course, that wasn't really great when the problem was burping and having too much food in the system already,
Mhm.
or when it was a diaper issue. So it's been a very interesting, yeah, because and I guess this is just different babies. Some babies will be like, nope, I'm not hungry, so therefore I'm not going to feed. That is not our child right now.
Where do you stand on the controversial binky, like sucker?
Oh, a pacifier?
Yeah, pacifier. That's what they call it. They didn't call it that here. It was always the binky.
So we've made a lot of jokes about like pacification being the first step of oppression and uh,
Matthew.
overcoming. But still, no, that'll be. I was like, hello, little baby. This is fascism. Come suck on your little pacifier. You're being pacified. I gotta have fun with it. But
That
we
does
definitely-
sound fun.
Oh, what a joy.
I we like it. I'm trying to my wife tolerates it. But my girlfriend thinks it's hilarious. We at this point, I think the pacifier we're mostly using for short stints. I know there's some people who want you to never, ever, 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 ever use it. I think there are also some of the people who want you to only have like organically fed mothers who are eating nothing but soybeans and flax seeds and all breast milk. We're not living that life. We're using formula a lot, and I think we've most found the pacifier for when we're trying to do something else with the baby and want to help him self-soothe a bit. So often, like when we're changing a diaper or
Mhm.
like when I am preparing a bottle and he's hungry, I'll put the pacifier in his mouth for a few seconds. We're not really leaving him with the pacifier like when he's going to sleep. I would say on the one hand, the biggest thing I've heard is it's, the more you use the pacifier, the higher your orthodontia bills are going to be when they're a teenager. He currently
Right.
doesn't have any teeth whatsoever, but I don't know if it affects his gums. But yeah, I think we're happy to use it in kind of emergency settings, as a help him calm down and while we're figuring out what we need to do.
Yeah.
Where were you two guys on binkies? God, you have me saying it on pacifiers.
You're welcome, America.
We used it. He was never really addicted to it, but the problem at night was he would cry out and you could see in the little monitor, oh crap, the pacifier fell out of his mouth. So you just creep in and put it back and he would be fine. And that was a whole hamster on a wheel feeling. So, but he was never addicted and we didn't have to go through withdrawal or bargaining when he was 2 to
Yeah.
get it away from him.
Yeah, we didn't either. I think our strategy was very, very similar. We had no ideological bent one way or another around
Yeah.
the pacifier, but it was just like, sometimes it wasn't that they were hungry, but they did like sucking on stuff. And
Right.
we found that if it wasn't, after a little while, we found it wasn't that they were that they were sucking on. If they didn't have the binky, they would suck on the corner of a blanket or
Mhm.
something like they're
Their
always
fingers.
sucking
They're
on
supposed
stuff
to
with
be
their
able to
fingers.
get their fingers in their mouth.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
once you stop swaddling, that's the goal is that they can self-soothe.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Right.
But to go back to eating for a minute, I think I've alluded to the fact that I had difficulty breastfeeding, but I didn't know I was having difficulty.
Right.
So my poor starving infant, the first few days of his life, was not getting sustenance, and I didn't know it because I thought I'm making some milk and he's got to be doing great. And then I went to a place where they very cleverly weigh your baby and then you breastfeed in a little group with other moms and then they weigh your baby and they were like, you have given him nothing. You've
Yeah.
sat here for 20 minutes and nothing. So once we realized that was not working, we tried to schedule it. They said every 2 hours or something. So we had a whole list, a checklist. I'm so type A and I'm such a planner and a list maker that I really thought we will just follow this list. Whereas other people were like, I wonder if my baby's hungry. I'll just feed the baby. I would be like, nope, he can't be hungry. It hasn't been 2 hours. I was married to that list for as many days as that lasted. And then you start to, you have to pivot. But
Right.
God, did I love it when they said, well, yeah, he should eat every 2 hours. I think I'm remembering that right. But we
Yeah.
had it posted outside his room. Who fed him? What time? How many ounces? And it just falls apart.
Mandy, how did you feel about back up a little bit because
Yeah.
when you first weigh the baby and they say you've given him nothing,
Yeah.
how did you feel about that? I know that there are a lot of moms who really struggle with sort of maternal performance anxiety, and am I ever going to be able to provide for the baby? Like, did you go through any of those places?
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had what I think now I can safely say was some postpartum depression. And I think it stemmed from not being able to breastfeed
Yeah.
and feeling like a failure
Mhm.
and a bunch of stuff, bunch of fun stuff, like losing my sense of identity and my any sense of creativity or my own
Yeah.
persona. But not being able to breastfeed was I tried for 11 weeks. I put myself through everything they say to do. I was eating weeds that they say can help. I mean, just everything they claim. I was on a pumping schedule of like pump every 20 minutes, never stop pumping, pump, pump, pump for 11
Jesus.
weeks. And when I finally gave it up, I was so much happier. It was an emotional thing to say, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and yes, the pressure. There's a group called the Booby Brigade. They can go F themselves. You
Mhm.
go on those chat boards, I need help. And it's like, you don't want it bad enough. Or, of course
Yeah.
you can use formula. Your baby will just be weak and dumb. Like
Yeah.
it's,
Mhm.
Right.
oh, so,
Yeah,
um,
we've been formula from the beginning. When Mary's able to breastfeed, she does,
mhm,
and like you, she had an awful lot of trouble that first week, and it wasn't
mhm,
until maybe the third day that the doctors were like, "Oh yeah, often milk takes 3 to 5 days to come in,"
mhm,
and we were like, well, "That's good to know," Um, but from the beginning, because we've known we want to do a sleep schedule type thing, and I really wanted to be involved with feeding as well. We've been sort of, when Mary can feed, when she's awake, great. We'll do breastfeeding, what we refer to here as farm to table, and that the rest of the time I will give it, McDonald's food straight from the formula
mhm,
bottles,
mm,
and that'll be fine too. And
yep,
that kind of reflects the diet we have. So, but yeah, it's been interesting. And then even just last week, we went off to it's a thing in Minnesota. People go cabining, where you get cabins by the lakes and stuff like that, and we rent a couple as the whole McCreary clan. My wife's maiden name is McCreary. Sorry, my wife's last name is McCreary. Their whole family, it's like 20 people, rent a whole bunch of cabins, and there's a bunch of people who are mothers there. And we talked a lot about this, about breastfeeding and who does and who doesn't. And it was, for me, as someone who obviously isn't a part of that directly, it was so interesting watching everyone tiptoe and trying so hard not to seem like what they were saying was being critical of someone else, because and thank God for that, because I think I could clearly see how bad it can get when people are, there's just so much judgment involved, it seems, including from groups like that and the Leche League and all these who just, oh, if you're not doing it right, then clearly you did something wrong, you are a
yeah,
bad mother. And
right.
I've never felt that for someone being like, well, you're not holding the formula bottle in the wrong way, in the right way.
Mhm.
It's just such a difference, and it's so obvious how that affects different genders.
Well, right. It's biological. It's a
Mhm.
biological failure as opposed to, and we'll, I'm sure, get into lots of discussions. And I have strong opinions, but I do try to respect everybody about
Hmm.
things like co-sleeping or all of those choices that we all make. Those are all choices. Whether or not you co-sleep, whether or not you
Yeah,
give a pacifier. I had no choice. It was, it
yeah,
was preordained for me and it was heartbreaking. But
Yeah.
I will say, and then we can move on from my sad story, but our pediatrician was wonderful. And I would go, how often do you go? You go like the day after you bring the baby home, then you go a week later, right? And you're
hmm,
going frequently. And every time I walked in the room, I would just start to cry. I was suffering.
yeah,
And she was the one who was like, "Cut it out. Give him formula. Stop it."
yeah,
Like formula's great. It's your baby's gonna do wonderfully. And she was so concerned about me. And it
yeah.
just, I think there might be some pediatricians out there who would be like, try more weeds under your tongue.
Yeah.
Like, but she
Jesus.
was great. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that is so interesting to me because it feels so self-defeating, because I'm not a scientist, but from the little I can see of the science plus all the common sense that I have about this, whatever additional benefit there is between formula or breast milk or whatever, and we'll get into the statistics of some of this stuff that I have some real thoughts on. The differences in baby health based on the level of stress and frustration that the parents are feeling, that is so much more of a bigger factor, you know? And
Hmm.
so to me, and I'm guessing this is kind of the thinking behind the pediatrician and that you talked to, and certainly how me and Mary have been approaching it, has been if we're doing things that have like that are not ideal for baby but are still pretty damn good, but as a result we're keeping parents happy,
Hmm.
even if we need to not like, I think it's worthwhile to say the child is not the only living thing in this family. Our needs are worthy too. But even if we have to be like, no, we have to be selfless, we can say we are better parents when we're not stressing all the time about breastfeeding, when we're not
Hmm.
worried about, like the one time I tried to have like all the bottles lined up and ready all the time so that there was never more than 2 seconds of the baby crying before I had a bottle in its mouth. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I couldn't do it.
Yep. And you are in a nice place where you're not teaching Penn anything at this point. Don't they
Right.
say 4 months, the first 4 months, you need to establish good habits or let them know there's nothing. There's just
Right.
meet his needs and take good care of him. In a few months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, you are going to start to have to teach him things don't happen instantaneously,
Right.
right? So it's okay that you're hungry and you're going to wait for the bottle for 90 seconds while I prepare it.
Right.
But for now, we're just you don't have to worry about the message you're sending at all. It's just,
Yeah.
yep.
And they're immobile. That so much changes when they can move.
Yeah.
And when they can roll their eyes at you.
Oh,
God.
so much changes when they can roll their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a
Judgmental.
double-edged sword because as someone who's kind of autistic myself and came from a household where passive aggression was a really big thing, I've always set the rule for myself in terms of my relationships, both romantic but also just close personal friends or whatever, that I cannot guess someone else's needs, and I need to be with people who are comfortable telling me their needs and allowing me to respond, not to the point where I'm going to be like try to ignore when they're obviously in pain, but like people can directly state, this is what I need from you.
Hmm.
And obviously a baby can't do that. And so it's kind of just hitting me this way. But every now and then, Mary and I remind ourselves, like, it's frustrating when we don't know what Penn wants. But when Penn starts telling us exactly what we want and telling us that we're terrible parents and slamming the door in our faces because we don't give Penn exactly what Penn wants, that will probably be worse.
Oh,
It'll be a
yeah.
real like,
Yeah.
I remember when all you ever wanted was a bottle and you couldn't tell us anything more.
Yep.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me, and I know you're just mired in it right now, but the thing that strikes me is that the more complicated bits of judgment came after the milk process was done, when it was making the transition to non-milk products, and there is a mighty, I think, very much the same, let's say, lobby, a mighty sort of social lobby around, do you make your own? Do you blend up your own sweet potatoes and kale ice cubes that you warm and feed to the baby for their first solid food? And those kinds of questions become only more complicated because you have to make choices. Like with the milk v formula, like that's a choice, but it's sort of binary. Like the baby will be fed with one of these things or the other. And as soon as you have an opportunity to choose, there is so much weight around what are you doing to their system? What are you putting in that fragile gastrointestinal system? And I, I would do anything not to feed my kiddo while walking the zoo, right? Like I would never want anybody to see the choices we made because it was so easy for others to judge the choices that we made, and I just didn't want to do it in public.
Just Pop Rocks and a spoon.
That was it. That's why we landed on Pop Rocks and a spoon, because we just felt like surely the contrarians are right.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, the judgment. I mean, have you faced any yet Matthew, like even being, you said everyone was careful in your family,
Hmm.
which I admire. And even when people are trying to be careful, there's a lot of, oh,
Yes.
you're gonna feed the baby that way.
Hmm.
Huh. Right. And it's like you just want to
Yeah.
hurl, you want to
I
punch someone in the face.
I think we've been mostly pretty free from that, and part of that's because we are not the first ones of our generation to have kids,
Hmm.
and the people who've had kids already have gone in a couple of weird directions, and that are fairly different from each other. Along with the fact that, like, we're obviously polyamorous, but we are living as a couple. Mary's sister Alona is part of a poly group with 4 adults, and Alona just had her first baby, but another woman in that group had had children already. There's sort of all 4 of them, sometimes 5 or 6, are all raising together.
Hmm.
Um, so in some ways, like, we're sort of like taking down the level of
Right.
communication.
You're more conventional.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Oh,
especially because
Yeah.
one of those
Matthew and
children,
Mary
they
are
actually,
super conservative now.
and this was what we didn't choose to do, but like, I think it's a valid choice. With their first child, not Alona's child, but the other people in the polycule, they had not told any. They were using they them pronouns for the child, and hadn't told anything about what the biological makeup might indicate towards gender, because it's not exact.
Hmm.
And that really confused the family for a while, but we all adjusted to it. And I think
Right.
I'm incredibly lucky and also kind of strategic in that I think I've kind of pre-cut out from my life most of the people who would be more judgmental about it, but also that we're pretty lucky in that a lot of people have not been too judgmental. I think where I've
Oh,
been,
Pete, he doesn't know about what we say
Yeah.
when they're not
well,
here.
yes,
That's
Because you're talking about things, Matthew, that are actually massive and important. And
hmm
the real insidious judgment is about stuff that is not,
correct.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's it. It's the stuff that doesn't matter that you will get the most just daggers.
Like, there have definitely been a couple of times where I am definitely the playpen, jungle gym kind of a parent, where I think
Mm.
that if a child's in my arms, I'm gonna raise it up really high and hold it up and then raise it back down and turn him upside down and laugh and joke with him, and that will every now and then get a few gasps, but they've all kind of learned that it's okay. I think what I'm mostly facing it is with, oddly enough, sharing pictures, because
Oh,
first of all, there's some people who just are of the, you don't want your children's identity stolen, you don't want predators out there, and I think that is all understandable fears. But there are people who just think any kind of posting pictures on Facebook is like just horrible and terrible, and you should never ever do it. Um, we're doing mostly sharing with family and friends, but we have done a little bit of that. But I've caught myself thinking about how, like, we've gotten these really nice blankets from a lot of our family members, and we want to share those with people, share pictures of those with people. But there are people who, obviously you're not supposed to let a child go to sleep in a blanket. And so wanting to, like, take the picture at the right time so it's very clear that, like, our hands are near the child. Like,
hmm,
the blanket is there for warmth, but the child isn't in danger, stuff like that. So I think there's been some level of that, but I think right now, to this point, most of the judgment has felt much more self-imposed from us. And it's a lot of me and Mary, kind of having to talk
Sure.
ourselves out of, uh, her worrying like you did, Mandy, about, like, am I a terrible mother that I'm not feeding the baby enough? I had a moment where I was at the cabin with the grandparents, and other people like that, and I was trying to move from my sitting position to my wheelchair while I was in a doorway talking to Mary with the baby, and I slipped a little bit, and the baby bonked its head against the doorway. And I was super worried. It was pretty dark, and I was convinced that I just, like, scarred my child for life or something
right.
like that. And I was really worried about what everyone else was going to think,
Yeah.
and Mary's parents were amazing, and immediately her father came over and was like, "You're doing a great job. You're a dad. This is what happens. These things are great." And it meant a lot to me, but I could feel that sort of self judgment immediately there. And yeah, I probably could have been a little bit more careful in that moment, and that's something I'm going to learn from a bit. But it was kind of a nice moment of, like, babies are a lot less fragile than we think. Like, they're not quite made of rubber the way, like, 3-year-olds are, but they are fragile in a lot of ways, but still they're not completely breakable. but also just that like we're gonna make mistakes and that's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I remember a moment like that. Casey was 2, and we had a tradition of going outside to the side of our building that we were living in and waiting for Dad to come home. And we would sit on the stairs and sing songs and talk and wait, and then the car would come and Casey would get all excited, and that was just our tradition. And we were sitting out there, and I don't know what happened to this day. I took my eyes off of him for 1 second, and he fell down the stairs.
Yep.
And hit his head and was crying. And I went Kramer versus Kramer nuts. And I was
Mhm.
like, do I just run straight to a hospital? And I was freaking out. And I thought, Jer would never forgive me, for
Yep.
how did you let him fall down the stairs? I still don't know, because we would sit there together, and I
Yeah.
must have sneezed or something that
Yeah.
gave him the chance to just try to go down the stairs, and he fell. It is, you will probably always remember that moment, Matthew, but those moments are so much harder on us than our children.
Right.
I just thought, will Casey ever forgive me? But
Well, the real question is, will Casey ever remember?
correct, he does not.
He does
But
not. I'll tell you what frees you of a lot of that judgment. We had a bunch of those knocks, and it's all exactly as tumultuous as you're describing, until one day, uh, our Sophie was with their grandmother, and we were out, and we came back, and Sophie had a big cut right across the center of their forehead that looked like the
the
lightning
Harry
scar
Potter.
on Harry Potter.
Mhm.
And it turns
Um,
out,
If you guys don't mind, I'm trying to avoid any references to that. So you mind just telling that story, starting that story again without the reference to?
I'll skip the whole story. Skip the whole story. It is central to knowing Harry Potter in order to make the story work. So
Oh, okay.
I will cut that, please, for the
Okay.
whole story. It's no longer relevant.
Deal.
Wherever you want to go from there.
Okay, sorry. Probably
No.
shouldn't allow it, but fine. Go ahead and tell the story then. That's fine.
It's really not. It is not a bother, Matthew.
Okay.
Let's just move on.
No, yeah, and I hear that, and I think this leads me to kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is how did you guys think about risks? Because I'm going to get up on my soapbox here a little bit, and then want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I have long been a person who is frustrated by the way we as a society look at what is or isn't risky, because there's often this sense of, if I tell you that doing this has a risk, now you're thinking about it. Now, of course, why would anyone take that risk? But like, I once, there was some kind of study that but like I once saw this data chart that was talking about like, is this kind of food riskier than this kind of food that you get at a supermarket? And it said that like, well, anytime you're going to buy food products, the riskiest thing you're doing, no matter what the food product you're buying is getting in the car to drive to the store. But no one actually thinks about that risk. And this kind of postulated, so if you're driving twice as far to get the healthier food option, because you think there's a risk to this particular thing, then well, actually the higher risk is the longer driving time. And where I'm going with all that is then I look at some of the things that people are saying now about like, okay, you can never do this, you can never do that. And a lot of them, I think there's very legitimate, like, yeah, this is a significant risk. Other times I'll see things that are like, well, if you avoid doing this, it will reduce the chance of SIDS by 50%. And what it mean, or it will reduce the chance of this other terrible thing happening by 50%. And what that means is that chance will go from 0.5% to 0.25%. How did you guys deal with like when people are throwing these numbers at you about what is or isn't risky, out of context, and how you kind of navigate both wanting to be the best parent while also realizing that like, getting to zero risk is pretty much impossible.
Well, I've got two thoughts on that. The first one comes from a dear friend and of mine for a long time, who lost they lost their third child to SIDS, and it was incredibly traumatic, as you can only imagine, right? That kind
Yeah.
of loss, that kind of discovery. And he is a formative part of a group in Massachusetts called Fathers Forever, which is a
Mm.
wonderful support group for in this case a paternal partner
Right.
coming together to support one another. And I'll never forget his take on exactly this idea is you you never know. You'll never know. We have no idea what the constituent components were to lead to this horrific loss. All we know is that once we're through the grief and we're trying to find our rational sort of way to move forward in our life, is
Mm.
that we probably, if we had the opportunity to do it again, we would do exactly the same thing because we
Yeah.
just can't internalize what those risk elements are. And so you just have to make the best decision you can in the moment. And the second part of that is, especially when watching your kids do things that you feel are uh, when they're young, they do stuff because they have no concept of risk. In fact, they learn risk from your reaction to what they're doing. They
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing is risky. They only know that you think it is. And why do you think it is? Because probably you wouldn't want to do it because all you can do is imagine the worst. And and so I feel like that was a real gift to have that in my head early, that I don't want to convey that I'm terrified
Yeah.
that they're doing something brave just because I wouldn't do it, right? I don't
Mm.
I don't ever want them to know. I want them to be brave, try hard things, even if I'm never going to do it. Try it. And they've done some batshit crazy stuff, and they're fine.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think I'm a big chicken. I don't do risky things in for me. Um, and I think that there are things that, like the whole popcorn debate we talked about last time,
Mm-hmm.
having had a friend go through that terrifying experience, it was worth it to me to say, no popcorn for you. We're
Yeah.
not going to risk it until you're whatever the age was, 4 or 5. You're just not allowed to have popcorn. But I also wouldn't climb up on the highest thing of the jungle gym and jump down, but I wasn't gonna stop him from doing that because I think that, that's part of
Yeah.
childhood, and he's gotta try those things. But for me, my one of my greatest, struggles was with vaccinations, and
Mm.
I am not an anti-vaxxer. I believe in vaccinations. Um, but I had personal experience with several moms get the MMR shot, and then their child turned out to be autistic. And these moms said to me, I saw my child disappear. They would make eye contact the day before the shot, they stopped making eye contact.
Mm.
So when it came time to get the MMR shot, to me, it felt like a giant risk.
Yeah.
And I was gutted by that. But I did it because I believe in vaccinations,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, again, my personal opinion. Um but we did it on a different schedule, and I tried to spread out shots, and I was like a nervous wreck during all of that. And that felt
Yeah.
very risky to me, but it was a risk worth taking. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
No, it really does. And just to clarify, I appreciate you kind of talking about how it's different opinions and stuff. I do want to remind people that while I can absolutely understand anecdotal experience being very concerning, and to the friends in your life, that it is very clear statistically there's no link between that and
Correct.
autism, and also having an autistic child can be great. But very
Correct.
much want to validate everything you're saying. But no, I totally get what you mean. And I think for me, that's why this is helpful. That's why talking to other parents is helpful, because it also gives an idea of, you know, it's funny in different parts of life, especially when I used to do very linked to this kind of stuff, reproductive loss care as a clergy person and as a mental health person. We'd often talk about how, like, you know, something like 1/3 of pregnant people or people who can get pregnant will have a miscarriage at some point. I'm gonna. It's. I think it's 1/3 of pregnancies end in miscarriage or something like that.
Mm.
And yet, every person who I would talk to about their miscarriage would often say, "Yeah, I'm the only one I know," because we never talked
Oh.
about it. And I think this is another instance. All these risk stuff, because all of us, it's so easy to feel like I am the only one doing anything risky. Everyone else is feeding their child the perfect food. Everyone else would never let their child fall down the stairs. Everyone else would never bonk their head against a thing. And so, yeah, hearing these stories about like, oh yeah, grandma fucked up, my sister had a problem, like all this, it makes it better. It
Yeah.
makes it so much easier for us because it lets us know we're not alone. And what I keep trying to remind myself is like, we got to this point in civilization 4,000 years ago. People were having babies and not knowing anywhere near what we knew. And yes, the infant mortality rate was really high, and that sucked. But like, the species didn't die out. Like we babies can live through things not being perfect, and that can be okay.
I used to always comfort myself. My mantra was like, dumber people than me have kept their babies alive.
That's
That made me
right.
feel better,
Yeah. Dumber people than you have taught their babies to drive. Dumber people
Yes.
than you have, right? Like, live by that.
Yes.
And in the sad part of it, but the flip side is that much smarter people than any of us have had their babies go through tragedies.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it's not always, it doesn't mean they did something dumb. It means
Yeah.
shit happens.
Yeah.
Oof.
Nice.
It gets
Sorry to bring it back to that terrible.
no, it's good. I mean, parenting is the most rewarding, joyful, terrifying, anxiety-producing journey. It just is.
Can I realize I didn't share a parenting story up front, but I feel like maybe it's a good time to share mine.
Yes.
Because it's with a child who's launched, and yet it has meant a lot to me. They are in emergency medicine, and they spend their days driving around on ambulances, as we know. And last week, they came home, eyes as big as saucers, and said, "It finally happened. I brought someone back. Someone had coded, and they brought them back to life, doing the
Wow.
dramatic, like chest compressions, sitting on the gurney, like they came back. And as far as we know, they are still alive, right? The team on the ambulance always gets notified if someone that they coded actually loses their life. They get a notification. And until that happens, that person is alive because of something that my child did. I had nothing to do with it directly, but I have to tell you, I feel a little bit like I did as dad.
Good.
And that is rejuvenating at a level I've never experienced in
Mm.
23 plus years of parenting. I've never experienced a feeling like that has stuck with me quite so resonantly as that.
Well, I
Wow.
kind of love that, especially in conversation with. I'm right now kind of going back and editing some of our original episodes so we can post them. You talked about how you had so little control, you feel like, of what your kids became.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's one thing to sort of feel like I want my child to be a doctor. I want my child to be, a civil rights, advocate. I want my child to be a star baseball player, whatever it is. We're not going to control that. But you said in that episode that you just wanted your kids to be good people and to care about people. And I feel like here, you had no idea that the way your child was going to do good things in the world was as an EMT, but they're doing what you hoped for. And Mandy, I don't know if this is where your mind went, but there's a Jewish concept called tikkun olam, which is the idea of to save a single life is to save the world entire.
Mm.
Oh,
And kind of that's where and it's that idea of just help one person, and then
That's
maybe help
beautiful.
another.
Yeah.
And your child did that, and you helped set your child up for that.
Well, that's about the level of credit I feel like I can take. But I'll tell you, I mean, it was big hugs that night. Like it is
Sure.
a joyous, joyous occasion to just be in orbit of that activity as dad.
Sure. I'm sure.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
My kid can't take dirty dishes down from his room. And I'm about to lay down the law, no more
Yeah.
eating in your room at all.
Whew. Everybody crosses that particular Rubicon, Mandy.
Do they?
Everybody. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Just wait. Do it. You've
disgusting.
got to cross it before the ants come.
Oh, we had
Please.
ants one time,
Oh,
and he was so
no.
traumatized, and then doesn't care.
Just forgot.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Memories of fleas.
this
Yeah.
is a whole other can of worms that I don't mean to open up, but I would just say this as a general concept. That if and when they are a point where, either with your permission or behind your back, they are beginning to bring people back to their bedroom for activities that we probably don't want to think about our children engaging in, those other people of whatever gender they might be are going to have very strong opinions of the cleanliness of your son's bedroom. And I will say for myself, the first time I brought a girl home and she was disgusted and decided to leave before any fun things happened, I started keeping my room very clean after that.
Oh my God.
Okay.
This is
Life will provide
outstanding.
motivation for Casey fairly soon.
I have
I'm
never
gonna use that.
even thought of that, but I was always a pretty clean kid. And when I brought people in, sneaking them through the windows and everything, it was always, I was always proud of that space. And
Oh yeah.
I just realized that, Mandy, what you have in front of you is a future data point to chart. When the room starts getting clean, you'll know Casey's getting busy. How does that feel?
Okay.
When the showers start happening more often,
Oh,
when
yeah,
they start
we
wearing,
passed that. We're taking long showers.
I wasn't even thinking that. I was not even thinking that. I just meant, just here's your next mission in life. Hopefully he's going to move towards, deodorant and aftershave or anything like that. Keep him away from Axe body spray. Whatever cologne he wants to go to, keep him away from Axe body spray. And you have done your own version of Tikkun Olam. You've saved the noses of those in
Okay.
school.
Duly noted. Thank you.
All right.
Amazing.
Pete and I will stop regaling you with our teenage love lives and terrorizing you about your son.
Boy, I'll tell you,
Any last words we want to close on?
I am so moved by Tikkun Olam. That's gonna stick with me. I appreciate that. That was really beautiful.
It's a really wonderful idea.
And I'm amazed you're conscious and making perfect sense and handling it all beautifully.
It is, sleep schedules are really working out. The biggest thing is that Mary and I are not getting quite as much time together as we would like, although her having a very generous maternity schedule is helping. But right now, we are together from about 1 in the afternoon, noon or 1 till 9 p.m. 9 p.m. she goes to sleep. I take over. For a while, it was just, all attention on baby, but we're getting more of a sleep schedule set up. We're getting more of a, turning off all the lights. We have my office set up so that all the screens are facing towards me, and the bassinet is just on the other side, so he can sleep in perfect darkness while I can work. That's how I started, and as well as I've learned the trick of hold the baby with one arm, hold the bottle in place with your chin, and that way you can still do things on your computer. But also more than that, just Mary gets a good night's sleep, and then around 4 a.m, we switch off. I go to sleep. I sleep till noon.
Mhm.
So we're making it work.
Yeah.
And it's working out pretty well. But the biggest thing is that once a week, one of the grandparents or someone like that comes over and takes over for 6 hours. Then Mary and I can just, generally we just go to sleep together, but just have that time together. So yeah.
Lovely.
Get back to me when the terrible twos happen, and we'll see if this rests. But for right now, we're making it happen.
The 2s were great. The 3s were a nightmare.
All right. Well,
All
thank
right.
you both. This is
Dun,
always
dun, dun.
helpful to me. Audience, let us know what you think. What was your first month with baby like? What are you expecting in your first month with baby? Is our podcast, are you enjoying it in a schadenfreude kind of way as you realize that your child-free life is exactly the right life for you? Nothing wrong with that choice, no matter what people might be saying these days. If we can provide that for you, all the better. I have myself, Mandy, and Pete. Please check out all the podcasts that each of us do on the True Story family of podcasts, truestory.fm. May the force be with you.